Welcome back in, Legends. We've got a fun one here. I've added in another tab for our next 3 games impact, and it's round 19, 20, and 21 is the big focus here. Heading into the back end of the bye period end, we have the tab here for how many buys teams have left. We have the rest risk sometime in the final 8 rounds is what we're looking at here. Most likely in around 25, 26, or a 27 range is the percentage that I'm looking at. Chance of a team or a player that, especially that Origin type of player, that's going to be rested in that back end for sure, because they play that extra couple of games normally, especially if their teams have a bye in around 13, 16, or 19. They're going to be playing that game for Origin, backing up in that the following rounder as well. So we'll get into that. I have my best buys list in terms of teams, and it's changed just slightly now that the Dolphins have come out of their final bye for the season. And yeah, we'll just focus on that next 3 rounds. So the Tigers up top, they have the 1 bye left in round 26. They don't have much of a rest risk, in my opinion. Like, really, it'll just be injuries for any Tigers guys. They don't have any Origin players at the moment, and they're not likely to make the finals. I don't know if they mathematically can or not if they go on a massive run. But yeah, with a team like this, you expect all of them to play all the way through to the end of the season, which is great. So that's the big news with the Tigers there. They come up against Sharks, Rabbitohs, and Warriors all away. So you look at those 3 games there. I don't think it's too difficult in terms of like any teams that are really going to dominate them and not help them score any type of attack. And then defensively, they should be fine as well to not have any big blowouts. When I say, could be really bad this week, but they do have Hines out, so that helps as well. If anything has changed, I'm making this at 11 to 17 a.m. on Tuesday. So obviously you've seen this on Wednesday morning. So if anything changes, sorry about that. I'm making this a little bit early because I'm busy the rest of the day and then into tomorrow during the day as well. So sorry about that in advance. Titans next. They have no buys left. They're still in the best buy category for me in the top 5. I moved them down to 5th just because the amount of guys you might look to target is probably really for feeder. And probably like a Jaden Campbell that you might want to look at. Brimson potentially at some point. But yeah, just a couple of guys you'd want to really look at there. And if there was any long-term injuries to Cleese Haas and these types of guys, then the 13 role with Randall might be it. But yeah, Titans, they've got the Eels, Eagles, and Dolphins. So pretty fine little set of matches over the next few weeks for their guys. So yeah, still a really solid team to look to purchase from. That's why they're in the 5th best team to look at right now. So yeah. Simple as that, and I don't think any of them have any injury, any rest risk there. So I've got them in the no on that one. Pretty simple there. They won't be making the 8, and yeah, no reason to rest them in the back end of the year. For the Dolphins there, they now have no buys left. They are in the 3rd best team to buy after the Rabbitohs and the Seagulls right now. I just think there's a few more relevant players in the Eagles, so you could split 2nd or 3rd. I think either way. With the Dolphins, you might own a couple already. I don't know if there's many more to buy outside of Plath and Aiken. These types of players there. Farnworth on a bit of a down phase, so yeah. Hammer maybe eventually. So 25% risk. I have them for resting in that final round. If they make it into that top 4, I think there's a good chance that they rest players. If they make it to 5th or 6th and they can't really improve in that last week, I think they'll rest players as well. So keep that in mind. 25% chance at the moment, because if they continue to lose a few games here, like if they lose against Rabbitohs on the weekend and then they lose against Panthers in round 20, they'll be closer to the bottom 8, or the bottom part of the 8, I should say. So yeah, keep a look at that. With Dolphins, not the highest chance of risk, but of rest risk, but yeah, that's the Dolphins. They're a fun one to look at. Storm, I've got them as a pretty high percentage rest risk. They're at 80%. They have 1 bye remaining this week coming, so yeah, obviously not looking to buy any from there. But if you're holding a bunch of these guns in Harry Grant, Jerome Hughes, these types of players, expect a rest in that back round or 2, round 26 or 27. They do have Cowboys and Broncos, so some teams up there in the 8 or close to it right now will be fighting for spots, and it might actually help one of those teams to get that final win to make the 8 as well. So I do think that they'll be firmly in that top 4, especially with Munster to come back soon and Pap's back now and some good things happening with them. Expect a rest in one of those weeks. And, with that bye this week, it could be a reason to not buy any more Storm players, to be honest with you there. Eli Katoa, I think, is someone that's a good chance of a rest. He hasn't missed any games this year. So all of their top tier guys that play big minutes, I think is definitely at risk for that week. Sharkies, I've got them with one bye left in round 20, and I've got them at a 60% chance of getting a rest in that last week. If they are in that similar situation to the Dolphins, they're obviously in the 4 right now. But if they fall out of that, it could be 4th, 5th, 6th, especially with Hines out longer term. That if they're in that kind of realm, I think they could rest players for sure. So I've got him at a fairly high percentage chance, especially some of their guys that have played that full season as well. Not as high of a risk as the Storm, Panthers, and also the Roosters, because I think they'll be clear top 4 guys. And the Sharks, just depends how they play without Hines and if they can continue to get some wins, because they've got a nice run through the back end of the season. I do think that if they can get to this point here where they've got Tigers, Cowboys, Rabbitohs likely to be without Latrell, Titans, Knights, Dragons, if they get through all those, one of these last few weeks, if they're in the top 4, could be a little resting for a bunch of their players. For the Panthers, exact same situation as the Storm. They've got that one bye left, but then they're clearly top 4 guys. So with Cleary coming back, I think they'll continue to win as well. And then in that one of those last 2 games, they've got the Bunnies and the Titans to finish. I think they'll rest players in one of those 2. And if it's the reason why they do round 26 guys is so they have a game under their belts before they go into that first finals game. So some teams like to have a bit more of a rest between, just to get things sorted, and depends how many bangs and bumps and bruises they've got. If they're kind of all feeling pretty good, then they'll probably rest a week early and then get a little bit of a crack into getting ready for the finals. And if it's the other way around, they might rest in round 27. So that's why they do a 26 or a 27 in that one there. And I think a very high chance at 80% to rest guys in one of those last 2 weeks. For the Bunnies, I've got them at a 10%. So they have no more buys left, and they've still got the best buys in there with, Cook, White, and, it would have been Latrell, have a Koloamatangi, and these types of players. We might see Chi Cam, and might see Jai Gray as an option, these types of players there. So plenty of options to go through. 10% I just put basically on like a Damien Cook was kind of the reason I put the 10%, because if they're out of the running, Mamazelis might come in. So that's that on that front. For the Doggies, they come up next. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say for the Panthers, obviously have a bye. Then they have Dolphins, Dragons. So that's pretty fun. Bunnies have the Dolphins, Tigers, and the Raiders, all teams that can leak some points. And that's why I've got them as a really, really good purchase, because of the ability for some of these guys to get some good attacking stats. Doggies have a bye this week. And then they go Cowboys into Broncos away. So tough enough, but they're a team there. If they can secure like a 5th spot on the ladder and get a home final, they're a good chance of resting players as well. So I got them at 30%. But if they do happen to lose a bunch of games in the next few, obviously after this bye they've got there, then they could easily have to play the rest of the year. For the Eels, they have no risk of resting, in my opinion. Neither do the Raiders, the Dragons, or the Knights coming up. They all have one bye remaining as well. For the Eels, it's in round 20. They've got a few guys you might want to look at in Madison. They've got Geimer as the cheap guy. We'll find out this afternoon with team list for sure. But, Cartwright could be an option there as well. Moses in the back end, you're probably holding Dylan Brown, Talangi, these types of players. So Titans this week away should be a fun game for sure into their bye, and then a pretty tough run of Storm, Warriors, and Panthers. So not a super exciting team to go for unless they're a middle forward or an edge. You can see some good tackle numbers and run meters from those guys. The ball's kept in play a lot more there. Raiders, they have a bye this week, and then they go Warriors and Rabbitohs into Dogs. So nothing crazy there for them. No real rest risk. I don't think you'd be buying anyone outside of Tarpanay or potentially like Fogarty. If he comes back pretty strong and is looking pretty good, he'll be a fun half to look at with no real resting risk for someone like him for sure. At the back end of this season, he'll want to play as many games as he can after missing a very large chunk of this season. For the Dragons, as I said, no rest risk there. It's really the double R's, so hard to say. Broncos into the bye as well. And then Panthers, Storm, Dogs. So very, very tough defensive outfits outside of probably the Storm, but away from home is tough. Broncos away, they really need to get a win this week too, so they'll be fighting hard. So Dragons outside of no one really. Holding a couple of your middle forwards would be the only ones you'd be looking at. Lomax would be even tough to buy against some of these guys, and he's got a higher break even coming into next round 21 as well. You then got the Knights, who have the Eagles and the Broncos the next couple of weeks before a bye into Panthers. So, yeah, a team that you could have some interest in. I still think there's a few guys to have a look at or hold, obviously. You've got Fletcher Sharp in there right now as a hold. Kalen Ponga to look at either in round 20 or 22 or 23. Panthers in round 22. That'll be fun. And, yeah, you got holds in like Lucas and maybe Brayley, these types of guys. So they're a really solid team to target this week just because you get round 19 and 20 out of them. From next week, I think they're a lesser... they'll definitely be off the best buys list. Actually, probably have them... haven't looked at it completely, but I think I'd have them below the Titans, actually, with the setup you've got now. They're just more players that are pretty relevant there for the Knights with Greg Marzhew and Bradman Best and players like that. So, yeah, that's why I had them on there, because you had Greg on there as well. Broncos, they are done with their buys until round 24, which is cool. I think a 20% chance of resting just because of how many Origin players they've got. And if they do get to that back end and they can't really improve on their ladder position, then I think there's a chance of resting. But really, they'll be looking to get into the 8, basically, and they might have to play all their games. So Payne Haas, Carrigan, these types of guys, really interesting to look at, and a pretty nice run over the next 3 weeks with Dragons, Knights, and the Doggies, Titans, Cowboys before their bye. So that's the Bronx. For the Eagles, one more bye to go in round 22. They are second on the list just because there's a bunch of really good options. So Kola, unfortunately, is out. You've got Olakau'atu, you've got Garrick as 2 really good buys this week. Lehigh Hopewadi comes back in for another month. You've got Tom Turbo, who could be an option as well at the back. Tommy Talau's a solid hold. You might have Burbo with his concussions, a little bit annoying, but yeah, a bunch of options. A good little run for the rest of the year. I don't think there's anyone too damaging. Obviously, Sharkies at the back end could be resting. Outside of that, Roosters in round 21 will be their toughest game for the rest of the season there for the Eagles. And then you get to 3 of the teams there, Warriors, Roosters, and Cowboys, who are very, very tough to buy. Obviously, they missed round 19, and that helps once they get through that one. But Warriors still miss round 27, so they have that bye then. The Roosters, I do think, with round 23 bye, and then very high potential to rest in round 27. That's what I see with the Roosters. They could also play them because they had a bye in round 23, but they could also easily just rest those guys. Still an 80% chance. They could, Origin guys could miss in round 20 as well. Crichtons and these types of players. So keep that in mind. Watson's still likely to get good minutes, but they're a team now. If you don't own a few of their guys, it's going to be very hard to purchase them because of the lack of game time that you might see out of them. Very similar to that with the Cowboys. Like I'm sitting there owning Cotter. If you own Val, if you own Drinkwater, Cotter's obviously a tougher one given he is a chance of missing round 20. Same with Robson. Drinkwater, is going to be there round 20 all the way through to 25. And they come up against Bulldogs, Sharks, Tigers, Broncos, and the Raiders. It's not too bad of a run. Misses round 25 and plays Storm and Dogs. So 2 fairly tough ones in the back 2 games. But it's 2 buys for those guys remaining. And the Origin guys, they might miss 3, and they might, if they are locked in the 8, they could miss that last round as well. So keep an eye on those types of players. Cowboys, they'll be fighting for the 8, so I think a 20% chance of them resting in that last game. And that's only if they were to secure a spot and not be able to push into a home final kind of contention there. So I think we'll leave that video there, guys. That was a pretty simple one, but a lot to kind of note down. And all of our sides are very, very different in terms of the makeup and in terms of guys you want to be looking at targeting. You might have 2 players from a certain team here in the middle that has a later bye, right? Whether that be the Knights, whether that be the Seagulls, who currently just have that 1 bye left, whether it's the Tigers in round 26, whether it's the Sharkies in round 20, you might have a couple from those teams already and you don't want to add 2 or more, but there might be other people out there that have 0 or 1 and they want to target 1 or 2 more players from those teams, and that could suit your team better than it suits someone else. So that's where it's very individualized over this part of the season. There's a lot of players that we all don't have that I'm scared about each and every week, and there's a bunch of teams that you've really targeted. So keep an eye out on what's best for your squad over the next bunch of weeks. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. Thank you so much for being here for this one. I will get out and prep some of the buy, hold, risk, sell stuff, which I think I'm going to have to do Tuesday night. It's now Wednesday for you, but it'll all get out there. And we got that game on Thursday night. Just a shorter week, obviously, with the 5 games there. And I can't wait to see how it all unfolds in a massive round 19. And we'll get into a lot of the strategy stuff for round 19 in those videos as well, and all your questions. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch you in the next one.